Hey guys, coming into the movie for guys. Now, it's me reviewing. This is a movie that I know a lot of people have not been looking forward to, especially people that I happen to be very good friends with. This is probably on a lot of people's worst lists, except for mine, and I'll talk about why. But that movie is none other than Snatched, and yeah, like I said, this movie for me, it doesn't exactly fall into that category. A lot of people have been dreading it, and I've heard people say, "Oh, the trailer looks like absolute shit," and looks like one of the worst movies of the year. I personally don't feel the way, and I'll tell you why. I'm actually a fan of Amy Schumer. I am. Personally, I've really liked her since Trainwreck, and I'll tell you why. Because Trainwreck, for me, is more or less what Amy Schumer should be doing. When Amy Schumer first started out, she really did have a lot of smart comedy. And yes, there were definitely sex jokes in there, but a lot of her comedy was very smart, and she seemed to be a really great up-and-coming star. Once she got famous, however, I do kind of feel like her content started to go downhill a bit, and especially her recent Netflix special. She's become way too focused on the sexual humor, and after a while, that just gets a little tiring, and I was hoping that Snatched would somehow dial down on that. Like, it wouldn't focus as much on the sexual humor, and actually be more closer to Trainwreck, and actually be, an actual good story and things like that. And overall, after watching Snatch, I will say this is definitely not as bad as I think everyone has been saying, but it's still not that great of a movie. Snatched could have been something really great. But it quickly does get very boring, and I'll talk about why. The basic plot of this movie is nothing you haven't seen before. Basically, you have this mother and daughter, and they're very distant. The daughter Emily, she doesn't really have much of a life, and she has this boyfriend who actually ends up breaking up with her. So obviously, that's not going really great for her, and things like that. And basically, she decides that, her mom's in a place where she's not very happy, and she discovers this, basically this photo album of all of these photos when her mom was happier in Ecuador, and she decides that she wants to take her mom to go to Ecuador, and, that's what you think the plot of this movie is for the first 40 minutes. I'll tell you what the actual plot of the movie is a little bit later on, but let's just get in this movie starting off with the cast. Now, like I said, this is a cast that is one of the reasons why this movie is so polarizing, and one of the reasons people, I think, are really not looking forward to, especially when it comes to Amy Schumer. A lot of people really do not like her. Like I said, I'm a fan of Amy Schumer. I think when she doesn't focus on the sex jokes, she can actually be a very funny comedian. And here, I thought that she was okay. I didn't think that she was nearly as good as she was in Trainwreck, because her character is someone I have seen 1,000 times. It's that typical 30-something who doesn't really know what to do with her life, and she's kind of rude to people and things like that. And I did find some stuff with her character funny, but I just didn't really find her character to be all that compelling, to be honest with you. Now, she does a good job with what she has. I thought definitely some of the jokes she definitely did make better than they really could have been. There was a lot of delivery that I thought was definitely really good here. A lot of her line delivery I really did enjoy. It's just her character in general I really was not a fan of. And I'm going to say things that people have already said. This has been stated before, but I do agree. Really, anyone could have played this character. I mean, Amy Schumer, I know obviously people are very much against her, but this isn't a typical Amy Schumer kind of character. This is a character that I think really anyone could have played, and it seems like they just got Amy Schumer just for, just for the movie to make a profit. That's really what it seemed like to me. They only really got her for money-wise, and they didn't really care about who they actually got here. And I thought, again, she could have been really great, but her character just wasn't that, compelling to deal with. Goldie Hawn, on the other hand, I actually do really like this setup with her character. This is a mother who really isn't happy in her life. She has a daughter who, like I said, she doesn't really have a great relationship with. Her son is always needing her help and things like that, and he's always sort of helping her out, but she really does not seem to have much of a life. Romantically, she's not really involved. So I did like that direction of her not really having this great direction in her life. The problem is, the movie has no idea where to go with her character, honestly. Most of this movie, she just kind of seems like she's there. Like, she may have a funny line here or there, but I can't really say much that I liked about this character, because they don't really do a ton with her, unfortunately. Their chemistry, I thought overall was good. I definitely did think it was good as the movie went on. You definitely believe that they were in a mother and daughter that wasn't that that close and that had a lot of problems throughout their life. but in general, I just didn't find to be very compelling characters. Unfortunately, that really does lower my enjoyment of the film. But it's not the main reason why I didn't enjoy this. And then the rest of the cast here, I really thought was fine. There wasn't really anyone that really did stick out to me. Her brother in the film, I thought could have been really funny, honestly. Like, Ike Barinholtz, who plays Jeffrey, I think could have been a really funny character. I really wanted them to do a little bit more with him, but he is severely underused. I mean, he has this one really great line in the beginning about Harry Potter, and it was really funny, but they just didn't use him enough. I feel like they could have done a lot more with him, but unfortunately, they just didn't. The rest of the characters are very disposable. I just didn't really see much enjoyment in most of them, and that's really what I have to say about most of the characters. But now let's get into, I think, the main problem with the film, the directing and the writing. Now, the directing here by John Levine, I didn't think was bad for, like, the first 40 minutes. You know, this is your typical comedy that has laughs in there and things like that. Just the directing I thought was okay, the way he did direct the film. The problem is what happens later into the movie. Here's where we get to my main flaw with the film, because I told you guys the plot of this movie. That's not the actual plot of this movie. That's what the trailer wants you to think this movie's really about. What this movie is actually about is these two, they go on the vacation, everything seems great, but they're constantly warned, that, Ecuador is a very dangerous area and things like that, and they eventually end up getting kidnapped, hence the name Snatched, and most of this film is them kidnapped by these foreign guys for really no reason whatsoever, and them trying to escape and going on these brief sort of adventures with these guys, trying to get away from them and things like that, and after that point, the movie gets dreadfully boring, and I have to say, Jonathan Levine did not do a good job with that transition at all, because the movie goes from just a kind of fun road trip kind of movie, which is what I thought this was going to be. I thought it was just going to be something in vein of like a vacation film or something like that. That's what I thought this was going to be. Just a mother and daughter going on vacation, trying to get closer, and then finding a way to do that. That would have been fine. I really had no problem with it for the first 40 minutes. But unfortunately, this movie is actually an abduction film. Yeah, most of this movie is them kidnapped, and it really does not work. Especially when the movie tries to get dramatic. It really does not work because I didn't think the movie spent enough time on their overall relationship. And I didn't think that really worked at all, honestly. And the characters that kidnap them, you just don't care, honestly. I didn't give a shit about any of these characters. I can't tell you anything about them. I can't tell you anything interesting that they did. I just didn't really find them to be interesting characters. I thought they were boring. I thought that they were just really cookie cutter. And again, the movie doesn't give you a reason as to why these two were kidnapped in the first place. It makes no sense whatsoever. Just randomly, they're kidnapped. The movie never establishes a reason as to why, and that really does delegate a lot of the suspense within the film, because there are some genuinely scenes that you're supposed to feel suspenseful, and it really doesn't work at all, I have to say, and I really did not think that those scenes worked. And as far as the comedy goes here, like I said, the first 40 minutes, I was laughing. I thought overall was definitely going to be kind of a fun film, just something, a little harmless, something in vein of Dirty Grandpa. Dirty Grandpa is a film that everyone hates except me. I thought this was kind of going to be like that. But then, once they got kidnapped, the movie completely changed in basically every way. It was not a marginal change, may I tell you. This was a very significant change, and it really did change my opinion of the film. Because after that, the movie really was no longer funny. Rarely was I laughing. Rarely did I find anything to be that funny, and the movie really stopped focusing on the characters. For a while, you think Amy Schumer, there's this guy that she likes, maybe they're going to get together or something like that. Maybe Amy Schumer and Goldie Hawn's characters are going to get closer. You really thought that's where the direction the movie is taking, but once they get kidnapped, the movie really does go away from that, and instead, it's just them trying to get away from these guys, and it's just, there's nothing really that funny being said, there's nothing really that funny happening, and there is one scene that I honestly did cringe at, and I know I've said it before, that a lot of Amy Schumer stuff, gross out humor, doesn't really faze me a lot. There's a lot of stuff that I'm okay with, but there is one scene in this movie involving these guys and a certain something they put in Amy Schumer's mouth. Holy shit. I was like on the verge of throwing up. I mean, that scene was fucking disgusting. It's something I'm not going to be able to unsee for a while, and luckily it's like the only really gross out scene in this movie, but it was really disturbing, and especially someone, like I said, who doesn't really get that offended by that stuff. The fact that I was so grossed out, I mean, that really does tell you a lot. And unfortunately, the movie really did not get better from there. It tried to pick itself up. It did, and turn more into this mother-daughter film. The problem is they don't spend enough time on that conflict of these two really getting to know each other. So when the movie ends and you see them and they're starting to make amends, you just don't really buy into it. And I thought it really missed the mark on that. They really could have done a lot more with them as mother and daughter, maybe having a fun time, maybe starting to get to know each other a little bit more. But the movie just doesn't really do that. It felt like a lot of this movie was significantly edited and that they wanted to do that, but instead they made like two different movies. And I don't know if that was the case, but it very much seemed like there were two different versions of this movie, and unfortunately they just didn't really go together at all. And that's really my main problem when it comes to this film. Cinematography's fine, I definitely will say that. A lot of this movie are in like this dark space, and it's just not really appealing to look at, I have to say. But when they were in Ecuador, it really did look nice. You really do get that setting of Ecuador throughout the film. They did a really good job with that. The score was fine. The editing, like I said, the movie did fly by, but I have to say that second half was really hard to get through. The second half of this movie is very slow. Again, there's rarely anything that funny being said, and again, it really did lower my overall enjoyment of the film, because again, I was enjoying it for the first like 2/3, but after a while, once they got kidnapped, the movie really did start to lower significantly for me, and unfortunately, it really was not able to pick itself up from there. I was hoping it would, because I was enjoying it. I don't think this movie is terrible. I think a lot of people are going to. I understand. I really do understand if people don't like this film, but I thought that this movie was going to be something completely different than it was, and unfortunately, it did have me fooled. And, you know, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me. It does kind of go with that, but at the same time, I really thought this movie was going to be something very different, and I have to say, if you see in the trailers for this movie, most of those trailers are the first 40 or so minutes of this movie. The rest of this film is something you haven't seen before, and I really wish was like that trailer, because I honestly do wish the movie was very much like it, because I think it could have been a lot better if it was, but unfortunately it was. And at the end of the day, guys, when all is said and done, I am going to give Snatched a 2 out of 5 or a C minus. So over, guys, my review Snatched. The most guys thought of this movie overall, left your thoughts on it. Again, I really did want to like this movie, and I did for the first two halves, but I guess you guys are happy that I didn't enjoy it, because I know a lot of people really were not looking forward to this movie. I don't want to say happy, but like I'm sure you guys are not upset. I'm glad I'm not really in the minority, because especially with Dirty Grandpa, as much as I do enjoy that film, it's very tough being in the minority. There are not many people that enjoy that movie, and I don't think there are many people who enjoy this either. I enjoyed the first 40 minutes. I just wish the rest of the movie was like that. But that's my review. Hope you guys enjoy it. We'll see you guys in my next video, which might be for another movie review. I'm not entirely sure, but I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.